It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Buongiorno tutti. Hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. I am so delighted that you are here. I have reason to believe that this is show number 392. I hope I've not messed up any of the numbering. And of course, it's going to be a fantastic and fun show. Later in the show, we have our interview segment. This time it is with Professor Dave. He has a YouTube channel called Professor Dave Explains, and I found out during the interview he has more than 1,000 videos on there, and this is now his full-time gig, which is great for him. Everything from basic math to chemistry, physics, classical physics, modern physics, geology, biology, anything you'd ever want to know about the sciences. And I had actually wondered how he knows all this stuff, and that little secret is revealed in the interview. You'll find out how that works. The funny thing is, with all of this amazing science stuff, that's not how I found him. I found him because he also does Italian lessons. So when I learn a new concept in Italian, or I'm studying a new concept, he is one of the people that I go and watch videos, because he's got a video on it. He has 120 something Italian language videos. Some of them are grammar, but a lot of them are, some of them are vocabulary, but a lot of them are grammar. My vocabulary is pretty good. Every once in a while there's a word I don't know, but using the right verb and the right tense, that's been my challenge, and that's the part I'm kind of working on the most now. I actually have an online class program from an organization called Italy Made Easy from Manu Venditti, and he goes in incredible detail, and it's a paid program. Whereas Professor Dave Explains has a nice little 5-minute, 10-minute clip on that topic. So for me, it's nice to hear the same topic explained from a different angle, from a different person. And there's other people that I listen to for Italian stuff. But, I just kind of thought it would be cool to talk to him. And so I did, and we recorded it. And we're going to talk about that later in the show. The Investing Skeptically segment for this week, the formal segment, because I'm going to go on a rant here in a moment about something, but the formal segment is a super shitty fund. And it was not what I had planned for this episode, but it just kind of fell in my lap that one of my clients called and said that an advisor was suggesting that they might want to invest some money into this fund. And so we're going to go over that in a lot of detail. And it was kind of a really cool mutual fund because it contained, 4 or 5 different things as features that each one of those things has been a segment on my show of what to avoid. So it was just absolutely stunning and staggering that something like this was put together and is being promoted to possible clients or clients that, hey, you should put some of your money in this thing. So I think you'll enjoy that. The little side rant that I have actually kind of related to my industry, my business, the Polaris financial planning part of me. I am not a CFP. Now, most of you don't know what that means. That's fine. And it stands for Certified Financial Planner. It's kind of like a CPA, Certified Public Accountant. And I think the CPA is an organized private organization, and they have a really stringent test, and you have to pass it. And you have to meet other criteria to keep your designation, including ongoing studying is often required. And the CFP is kind of like that, the Certified Financial Planner. A group, I don't even know how it started, but a group created this, and they said, we are now the CFP board, and we set a standard. And if you want to meet our standard, here's the things that you have to do to be able to put CFP after your name. It doesn't come up very often, but every once in a while, a client or potential client calls me and says, Phil, I just saw this commercial from CFP, Certified Financial Planners. Are you a certified financial planner? And my answer is no, not based on the CFP board and their test. Could I go take their test? Yeah. Would I pass their test? I think so. It's weird because sometimes licensing tests like the Series 65 that I have or the Series 7 for the broker's exam, sometimes those tests have weird things on them that they think you should know, but you're never going to use in your professional career. So I don't know how much of that kind of stuff is on the actual CFP exam because I've never taken it. I've never even studied for it. So it might be a lot more of, at least from the image they want to portray is not only a certified financial planner know some stuff. They know all the basics and maybe even some complicated stuff. But they also have to promise to live up to a high moral standard. And so that's been, historically, one of their single biggest pitches that, hey, if you hire someone as a CFP, you don't have to worry about whether they are a fiduciary or not, because they are. They will always act in your best interest, and we keep tabs on that. And if they ever behave badly, we'll take away their designation. So always look for someone with the CFP certification. At least that's their sales pitch. Well, I just happened to be this morning thumbing through this magazine. I guess it used to be like a full-blown magazine. It's the print industry is really rough these days, I guess. It's very thin now. I don't know, 30 pages, 40 pages. Wow, more than I expected. 40 pages. It's called Financial Planning, and I think it used to be monthly. Now it's every other month. So it's like I said, it's a rough business, and I usually skim through this, and it's got some opinion pieces, and it's got, sometimes they have charts and graphs, which are kind of nice. And every once in a while, I learn something about the industry, because this is actually, you can you hear the pages? It's actually intended for people in the industry, kind of who's who in the business. And I'm sure they make a living by selling ads. Let's see, what's this on the back? The back cover is Charles Schwab Advisor Services, and that you might want to consider taking your practice to Charles Schwab. Well, I don't have to consider it. I'm already going there because they bought TD Ameritrade. And actually, just to be clear, I will not have any employment with Charles Schwab, nor do I have a contractual requirement to use them for anything. They have decided to keep and to expand what they already do with the purchase of TD Ameritrade, which is to provide services for financial planners. And they act as the qualified custodian, or they will act as the qualified custodian for my clients. So we'll talk about that more in other segments, and I've already talked about it some. But in this magazine, focusing, Phil, Financial Planning Magazine, there's a article about the CFP board. In case you wanted to go look it up, it is Financial Planning Magazine, July-August 2021. The title, CFP Board Shirks on Shielding Public from Bad Advisors. I was like, that's interesting. So the author here is following up on a story, I think, in the Wall Street Journal. Found the text there. In the Wall Street Journal, where they found out that through surveys and pulling data and publicly available advisor data, that advisors that contain or have been granted the CFP designation do not have any lower probability of having a case filed against them from a customer, a complaint, or a registration problem, or some kind of rule that they broke with FINRA. I don't want to go into that too much, but FINRA is a watchdog group, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that I have to register with by law. But FINRA will actually slap people around sometimes. It's not a lot. And the fees can sometimes be really big. I've talked about those in the past. When there's really blatant fraud, FINRA can get involved. The the really, really big dog in this is the SEC and the financial industry, the financial services industry, registered brokers, advisors. You don't want the SEC up in your shit. And so collectively as an industry, they created FINRA that says basically, hey, we're gonna monitor ourselves so you don't have to. So see, we are the fox watching our own henhouse. Don't worry about what's behind the curtain. But FINRA does actually do things. And the CFP board is promising an even higher standard. But this data suggests that people who have a CFP designation have absolutely the same percentage, the same probability of having a FINRA action applied against them or a complaint filed by a client or a prospective client or a former client. So I was kind of always worried that the CFP was truly meaningless other than a marketing gimmick. And this suggests that's exactly the case. So that was kind of interesting. But what the CFP board did in 2019, this was news to me, and I was delighted to find this out in the article. They created a committee to act independently of the board to review the situation and come back and provide analysis and a summary, and if anything was wrong, to provide action or action items, things that could be done to improve the situation. And this committee came back with what the author in Financial Planning magazine says was a scathing report. And it included things like the CFP board really hasn't done anything at all to monitor, to follow, to fine, to threaten to take away their label. They haven't really done anything at all. And the bylaws of the organization, which is supposed to be a charitable organization, a non-for-profit organization, says that they have to do that. So they're in the CFP board, CFP organization is actually in violation of its own bylaws. So pretty damning report. And one would think, wow, that's a problem that needs to be fixed. And it was fixed. And this is so common. You may have already guessed where I'm going with this and why this rose to the level of me bothering you with this little industrial detail. They changed the bylaws. They changed the bylaws so that the way that they are acting now is no longer in conflict with the bylaws, which problem solved, right? I mean, if your problem is that you're not following the bylaws, change the bylaws. So the bylaws have been modified so that the CFP board isn't really even pretending that they're going to hold anyone responsible. Matter of fact, they came out with statements talking about how they're a small nonprofit organization and it's not really what they do, and they have a very small budget, and they're just humble farmer folk that really don't know how things work in the big city. No, they didn't really say that last part, but it was kind of interesting that they just don't have the resources to go and audit or check up on the advisors that have the CFP designation. But it gets worse because after they changed the bylaws and they put out the statement that they don't really have any money, they've decided to give a few people on the board really big fat pay raises. And on top of the big fat pay raises, they launched a new advertising campaign to bring in more money. And the new advertising campaign doesn't have the language of the old advertising campaigns. It doesn't talk about being a fiduciary, that's a requirement. It's just, if you want to get someone who knows what they're doing, you want to make sure you hire a CFP. So any pretense that used to exist about the CFP person with a CFP designation is more likely to be good, less likely to rip you off and cheat you. That's all gone. And again, the author even brought up a case where, and this is just some of the things that I've talked about before, which people often think that I'm crazy. Let's see, where is this? Yes, here it is. The article talks about a client that complained to the CFP board that they had an advisor that was charging them an ongoing percentage, like I do. It's publicly available, 1% or less for accounts over 500, and then there's another discount at 1 million and 2 million. And just as a reminder, my minimum right now for new clients is 2 million. But this client was complaining that they were paying that fee and also got sold an annuity that paid a large commission and ongoing fees to the advisor. So the advisor, in my mind, this is really close to double dipping, although it's probably not double dipping because that in the industry that has a very specific technical meaning that this may not qualify for, but you get the idea. The advisor is being paid twice to nudge, nudge, wink, wink, help you. And that's specifically prohibited by the CFP. That may not be specifically prohibited by law. So it's not like this person is violating the law, but this advisor is getting paid by you, the client, to represent you, and they're getting paid by an insurance company to sell an annuity. It doesn't go in the detail if this was something where the annuity pays the advisor 1 or 2% per year, or if they get 5 or 10 or 15% up front, or they get the entire first years of payments for the annuity. I don't know the details on that, but the author of the article did estimate that this client in total was paying 5.29% per year on their investments with this advisor. Absolutely stunningly high, and a really great way for an advisor to make tons of money if you as the client don't have any idea how much you're paying. So that's my little CFP rant for today, and we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to go into the actual rant or the super shitty fund from BlackRock. And then after that, an interview with Dave from the YouTube channel Professor Dave Explains. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship. All right, we're going to have some fun. I'm super excited. Maybe I had too much caffeine, but I just had a great conversation with one of my clients, and often, and a lot of my clients know this, some of my best stuff comes from clients because they're out there and they're being pitched stuff, and they come to me and they're like, what the fuck is this? And so I just had one of those conversations, and we had so much fun going over it that they suggested, hey, Phil, could this be a segment for your super shitty fun segment? I'm like, oh my God. So try to pull it in a little bit here. We had so much fun talking about this. I think you're going to love this. And this is something from a company called BlackRock. BlackRock is probably a name that you don't know, but they are one of the biggest mutual fund companies in the world. They're up there with Vanguard and Fidelity, but the name is not necessarily as well known. A solid name, and there's absolutely nothing to convince me that from time to time they have index funds and exchange-traded funds and managed funds that are fantastic. They have a lot of good stuff. But I guess like with anything, they can have some not some good stuff. So a person who works for one of those management firms where they have advisors, let's say that it starts with Morgan and ends with Stanley, but they contacted my client with an email, which is great because it's in writing, offering the suggestion that they should invest money in this really new fund. This new fund is right. It's a new fund. So it's great. So there's no track record of anything. I don't even think they made the effort to give back-tested data, which we've talked about before, and how comically meaningless and misleading that can be. But basically, the idea of this fund is so good that you should invest in it. And we looked at, and I found a little research. I found on the BlackRock website, I found, this is not a prospectus, a fact sheet maybe, a fact sheet informational document. information about this fund that I read through this and was able to understand more of what I'm talking about. But the fund is, I think this is the symbol for it, ECAT. Or, I just realized it's BCAT. The guy who wrote the email couldn't even get the first 4 letters correct. That's fucking hysterical. Okay, assuming I'm looking at the same thing or the right thing. One of the first things in the email from the salesperson, I won't even give him the honor of being an advisor. The salesperson, who I don't know what the commission is on this. There must be one, right? There must be a commission. No, there's not a commission. Oh, it's probably an ongoing thing, or they're getting a percentage of the account if you invest in it. So they're just excited that this is a good idea because someone at BlackRock told them it's a good idea. So now they're telling you. It has this, let's see here, ECAT, which I think is BCAT. So you might have to have a challenge looking it up. New IPO closed-end income fund coming from BlackRock. Okay, that alone is a lot. That's a lot. New IPO on a closed-end income fund. Okay, so some industry words. Mutual funds can be open-ended or closed-ended. And there's pros and cons for both. The usual index fund that I recommend from Vanguard, as an example, the Vanguard Large Cap Growth Fund. That is an open-ended fund. At any point in time, someone can come along and add money to it, send money to Vanguard, buy shares of this fund, and someone at Vanguard is going to have to figure out how to take that money and go buy more assets, right? So it's open-ended. Money can come in at any time. Money can also leave at any time. If there's a balance of money coming in and going out at the same time, well, then the fund management team or whatever doesn't have to buy and sell anything. They just kind of swap and move money around. It can be a really big problem for an open-ended fund if a lot of people want to take their money out at one time. It's because the fund might be forced to liquidate investments at the very time that the market's down, as an example. So that's one problem with a conventional mutual fund. What you probably think of as a mutual fund is an open-ended fund. A Vanguard index fund is a subset type of open-ended funds. Vanguard, thankfully, generally doesn't have a lot of people rushing in or rushing out. And part of that's because of the history and the psychology and the type of client that Vanguard appeals to. If you have a very high percentage of buy and hold investors, they're regularly putting money in and they're not regularly taking money out unless they're in retirement. So it tends to even out pretty well. That allows a company like Vanguard to hold a smaller reserve of cash within that fund, because the odds are in any given day or any period of time that people want out a whole lot of money right away is small. Other funds, particularly managed funds or a managed fund that does bad, might have to hold not 1 or 2% cash, but 5 or 7 or 8 or 10% cash if there's a reason to believe that a lot of people are going to want their money out, because you have to give them their money. It's an open-ended fund. At any point in time, you can request your money and you basically get the end-of-day price. That's another thing that's plus or minus with an open-ended fund. The price, the net asset value of the shares are calculated at the end of each day. And so when you add money, that's the price you pay. If you take out money, that's the price you get. There's no variation. What you get is from the end of the day. A closed-end fund can trade like a stock during the day, which is not necessarily bad. And the nice thing is the fund itself has virtually no expense handling, bringing in cash or letting out cash, because once all the shares are sold, the shares are sold. Now you have to sell them to somebody else if you want out. Well, this creates a problem for you, the investor, because a closed-end fund might sell for more or less than what is called the net asset value of that portfolio. So if the shares are worth $33 and you want to sell them, you don't just tell the company, I'm selling, give me my $33 per share back. They don't sell anything to you. You have to go on the market and sell them to somebody else. So you have to find someone that's willing to buy them from you. The net asset value is $33, but they don't want to pay you $33 because they don't have to. They can go buy something else. So you can get into a situation where what you thought you were avoiding with the open-ended fund, where you might want to take your money out when the market goes down and the prices fall, that can actually be just as bad, maybe even worse, in a closed-end fund. Because if it was worth $35 and now it's suddenly fallen to $25 and you're thinking, oh my God, this fund sucks, I want to get out. If a generous portion of people that own shares in this closed-end fund also want out, it creates a problem with supply and demand. There's a lot of supply. Everybody wants to get out. Nobody wants to get in. It sucks. We now realize that fund is horrible. And so the net asset value could be 35, but you could end up trying to sell it for 25 and only getting 20. And you finally get to a price where someone says, okay, I'll pay 20 because it's worth 35, right? They didn't lose money like you did. They're buying it at a discount. So they're arbitraging, paying you a low price with the expectation, the hope, the dream, the fantasy that at some point in time, this fund stabilizes back out, supply and demand equalizes, and then maybe they can sell it for 20, 28, 30, 35, whatever, when they only paid 20. So that's something to worry about. If you buy a closed-end fund, you want to make sure it is a very big closed-end fund, a fund that has a lot of people buying and selling all of the time, so that the price change in relationship to net asset value is very, very small. Otherwise, you've now incorporated another unpredictable, unreliable variable into your investment scheme. So this is one of the reasons I don't like closed end income funds. So got that out of the way. The next thing, it says here that the fund is targeting a 6 to 6.5% yield with some potential, with some growth potential. I'm like, a 6 to 6.5% yield. Regular listeners know that really safe, conservative U.S. government bonds are around 1%, maybe below for short-term 10-year bonds right now. U.S. Treasuries might be 1.3%. And I'm even shying away from those because if interest rates go up, you could get whacked on the effect of the duration and how that new higher interest rates make your bonds less valuable. But aside from that, they're targeting 6 to 6.5% yield. Well, when I went and looked this fund up, I was very confused because their projected yield, because the fund is not actually going yet, they're collecting assets for the IPO, their initial public offering of this closed-end fund, but their projected yield is 2.7. So the email says targeting a 6 to 6.5% yield, but the website says that the yield is 2.7%. So I'm very confused about that. And then I figured out what it was, is that the distribution rate, which is also available on the BlackRock Capital Allocation Trust Fund info sheet, says 5.68%. And I'm like, okay. Now I get it. So if you have $1 million and you invest it in a fund, we're going to be very generic here, any kind of fund, if it has a yield of 2.7%, that means during the year, total for an entire calendar year, it's going to spin off about $27,000 in cash. The yield is 2.7% on $1 million, $27,000 in cash. You can take that cash and spend it. Cool. We get that. But if they're going to give you 6 to 6.5% or 5.68, as this website says, that means they're going to have a yield of 2.7, but they're going to pay you more than what the yield is. Not necessarily bad, because the Polaris plan kind of does this, but it's obvious. It's clearly explained. And so they have to sell something. They might have to sell some bonds. They might have to sell some stocks. They have to sell some assets. So what you get is you get your $1 million fund pays out $27,000 to you. That's cool. But if they're promising you 6%, they have to come up with another 3.3% by selling some stuff. And if the fund value does not increase and they sell you 3.3%, they sell 3.3% of the stuff, your portfolio goes down by $33,000. So you get all the money you expected. Part of it is dividends or yield from the stocks and bonds held by the fund. Another part of it is the fund itself eating itself, selling part of itself, and giving you back part of your cash. So what you're spending, which can be okay if this is what you intended, was a yield of 2.7 and then pulling out of the equity 3.3%. Okay. So when the representative of the company says they're targeting a 6 to 6.5% yield, they're wrong. Now, the fund might be targeting a 6 to 6.5% distribution rate. That's what that's called. And on the website, it says the distribution rate is 5.68%. So my first concern is that the website says 5.68%. Why does the email say 6 to 6.5? How loosey-goosey is this person being with the email? And when they put 6 to 6.5% yield, when that's clearly not the yield, more than double the yield, 2.5 times the yield. Did they misspeak? Did they use the word yield when they should have used the word distribution rate? So are they misleading you? Are they accidentally, ignorantly putting the wrong word? And of course, which is worse, that they're being deceptive, I'm being polite here, or that they're incompetent? I don't know which is worse. Let me know. Send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And of course, it says with some growth potential. And it goes on and says it's headed by Joe Blow. I don't need to put this guy's name in there. One of the guys I really think has his finger on the pulse. Finger on the pulse? Finger on the pulse of what? So many words that mean so absolutely little. That's interesting. It does go on here, the email from the salesperson. No loads or sales charge. Okay, let's just assume that he's got that part right, despite being wrong, or at least using the wrong words before. It does have here a management fee of 1.25% and a gross expense ratio of 1.38%, about 1.4%. So instead of like an index fund that might have 0.1%, this has 1.4%. I'm assuming the management fee is part of the expense ratio. I think that's a reasonable assumption. I may be wrong, but that would just make it worse. So I'm going to give them the optimistic possibility that their expense ratio is only 14 times what an index fund is, 1.4% versus 0.1% or less for some really good index funds. So no load or sales charges in this email looks like it's factually correct, but he doesn't know about the difference between yield and distribution rate, and he doesn't mention the pretty damn high expense rate. So that's an interesting thing. Next on, the IPO, the initial public offering of this closed-end fund, is $9.28 at $20 a share. So probably you can get in ahead of the curve and get your shares now at $20 a share, but will it be worth $20 a share on 9.28? It might be. That'd be a pretty reasonable thing to assume. If they're collecting $20, it's going to be worth $20. But right now, there might be a lot of salespeople trying to convince a lot of people to buy this. And that makes it worth the $20 because everybody puts in $20 a share. It's worth $20 a share. Well, what if it does poorly? What if it does poorly and 10 or 15% of the people figure out it does poorly 2 years from now, and those 10 or 15% of the people want their money out? And it's a closed-end fund, so all the money that's ever going to go into it is already into it. There would be absolutely no sales pressure from salespeople trying to get new people to buy the shares. So if you want out, if a bulk of the people who bought into this want out 2 years from now, even if its net asset value is still $20 a share, you could end up getting a price materially below that. 19, I don't know, 18, I'm guessing, just making shit up, 15. Why would anyone pay more than what it's worth? but someone might pay less than what it's worth because they can see how bad the performance is, and maybe you're hungry to get out. That's a problem with a closed-end fund, and I don't know how much liquidity this is going to have as a closed-end fund. If I was going to buy a closed-end fund, I probably wouldn't get it at the IPO, the initial public offering, because I have no way to judge the availability to buy and or sell shares. So that each of these is a turnoff for me. It says it will be a global portfolio. Okay, global portfolio. So it'll have U.S. stocks and bonds and stocks and bonds from everywhere else. Approximately 75% in equities and 25% in fixed income. But this is called, what do they call this? An interesting opportunity for income with some growth potential, which would sound like mostly bonds to me, but this says 75% stock. So 75% stock, that's how they're theoretically, hopefully able to give you 5 or 6% distribution, not yield. The average stock right now is yielding under 2% as well, just like safe bonds. So they're going to have to sell something. And if the stocks go up by 6 or 7 or 8 or 10%, you could still be money ahead. But why this game? Why have this? The other thing is approximately 75% stock and 25% fixed income. You won't know exactly what they're going to have until you have shares, or until it's actually traded and disclosed on something like Morningstar.com. But on this website I looked, and right now the information that they're reporting is that it's half stocks, half bonds. Okay. This creates problems for Phil. It might not necessarily be a problem on its own, but I'm going to lack visibility, or what I call clarity. I won't know when I own this fund, am I going to have 25% bonds or 50% bonds or 75% bonds? There's probably some definition in the prospectus that says what the guardrails are. How low can I go in bonds and how high can I go in bonds? But what happens day to day, month to month, you have no control over that. If this is a big part of your portfolio, do you have 75% stocks or do you have 50% stocks? You don't know. You might not even be able to see it until you get another quarterly report. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So you don't have the visibility of what your investments are. And you definitely don't have what I call the granularity, where you can go pick and choose what you want to sell. Because if you need money out of this fund, let's say it's half stocks, half bonds. When you sell something, you're effectively getting half stocks, half bonds being sold, but you're only getting the price that you can get from someone else that wants to buy it. And again, if the demand from the public disappears after the IPO, you might have a really hard time getting your $20 back. That's the IPO price, $20 a share. If it goes to $15 a share, it doesn't really matter if the fund goes up or down. You're being offered $15. Do you take a 25% hit or do you not? That sucks. That's really uncool. So let's see. Next sentence. Up to 25% in the private investment market. Okay. If you've not heard my rants on private placement REITs, if you've not heard any of the interviews where I've talked to professionals about private placement funds, hedge funds, and how awful they are for you as an average investor, you need to go back and listen to those. I can't go over all of that now, but 25% of your portfolio could be in that shit. Oh my God. If everything else was golden, this would make me walk to the exit. I'm not even saying no. I'm getting the fuck up and I'm leaving. This is absolutely staggering. Up to 25% in the private investment market. But it doesn't tell you what part of the market. So again, it's wide open. They could do almost anything. Another thing here, and I think this is just purely marketing bullshit at its best. The fund will operate with an ESG lens. An ESG, in case you didn't know, environmental, social, governance. Those are the new fun buzzwords for socially responsible investing or socially conscious investing, which again, I've covered many times, and you can go find old episodes where basically anything ESG or socially responsible It's a marketing gimmick. I'm not going to go over all of it because it's whole segments, whole shows about that. Completely worthless, complete crap. It's marketing to get you to separate from your money. ESG. I don't like it. But they're not even going to do ESG. They're going to, let's see, the fund will operate with an ESG lens. What does that mean? Are they going to follow some ESG rules that they're laying down? And what are they? Are they going to change? Do they have to follow them? Of course they don't. They're going to use an ESG lens. Whatever the fuck that means. So that is another one of the things. Almost any one of these things by itself is enough to make me run away. Next sentence, I think. Let's see. Is this all one sentence? I like this. This is good. You're going to like this. I believe BlackRock is uniquely positioned to take advantage of this unconstrained income approach. What the actual fuck does that mean? That BlackRock is uniquely positioned. They're uniquely positioned how? In what way? They're a mutual fund company. They're a brokerage firm. What is it that they have that's unique? I have no idea. It's not explained. To take advantage of this unconstrained income approach. It's not even an income approach. It's a distribution approach. Going back to the idea of, is it income or distribution? The other fun thing that I did, I looked at what's called the exposure breakdown on the BlackRock page of the bonds that they have already, which could be 25% of the portfolio. Maybe it's 0, maybe it's 50%. I don't know what the guardrails are. But bonds have different ratings for how safe they are. AAA is the best. It goes AAA, AA, single A, triple B. And those 4 categories are considered investment grade. Below that is BB, B. And sometimes they use C and D. This website says below B. And then there's also not rated category. And the not rated bonds could be something brand new that's not yet been rated, but is AAA or will be AAA. However, most of the time, not rated bonds are not rated for a reason because they suck. So this fund so far in the AAA category has 0.4% in AAA, 0.4% in AA, 1.4% in A, and 10% in triple B. So of the investment grade, reasonably good quality bonds, they're looking at 12.5%. Everything else is junk or worse. So they've got double B, B, below B, which would be triple C or worse is 2%, and the not rated is 10%. A really, really amazing collection of really shitty bonds. So of the bonds they're holding today, it's basically junk bond city. Regular listeners know there is not an inherent problem with junk bonds, but it should be a reasonably small part of your portfolio. Other holdings that they have here is the S&P 500 ETF. Well, if you're going to just invest in the index fund, why don't you just get the index fund? Another one of their largest holdings, Microsoft Corporation. Does Microsoft comply with any ESG rules? One of those rules, I don't know. And there's another ETF trust, S&P 500 holding at a different price. So they're going in and buying different prices. Or are those puts and calls and futures? I don't know. They're probably going to play games. Johnson & Johnson, MasterCard, other big names are going to be in there. So they're buying these things that it's just like a handful of large stocks and a handful of index funds that they're slapping together that you could pay 0.1% for, but instead you're going to pay 1.4%. And you might get pinched if you want to sell this, or you can't wait to sell it and sell it for below the net asset value. And if you, like this salesperson, think that the yield is 6.5%, you are going to be in for a fucking shock when you find out that the yield is 2.7%, but every year they give you 6% of the money back. Your portfolio is shrinking at a generous rate. So I think all of this makes this easily a super shitty fund. Hopefully you enjoyed the fuck out of that, because I sure did making it. So on with the show.
and you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God, what will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say, bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I'd say.
And you think you're going to get in on
No,
that?
but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac. Utter maniac. Totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. You are, of course, still listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. And next up, I have Dave. He's just going to go by Dave today. But I'm going to tell you about his YouTube channel, Professor Dave Explains. How are you today, sir?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. My listeners may or may not know, but from time to time I listen to your videos, watch your videos, I guess. Mostly it's the listening part, because you do Italian grammar videos, which people would think might be boring, and sometimes they are, but they're awesome. How did you get into making those?
So I had already started the channel. I started the channel in 2015, and then I think I started the Italian stuff around 2017, 2018. But what had happened was that the channel was picking up steam. I realized I wanted to make a lot of different different subjects. And my parents are Italian immigrants. So I'm first generation. I was born in the States, but my parents, came over to North America like in their mid-20s. And my mother has been teaching Italian at universities for like 40 years or,
Nice.
a really long time.
Yeah.
So she has her whole curriculum and, kind of already made. So we decided we're going to work together on this. I had to kind of adapt her curriculum a little bit, but she pretty much just provided me with all that. And I knew it would be possible just because, I'm not as much of an expert on the Italian language as I come off in that series. It's her content, but I speak fairly well, and I do speak with a pretty good accent. So I knew that I'd be able to pull off the pronunciation properly. So we just kind of collaborated on that, and then I would send her the videos to okay them, if there were any errors or anything, and put those out. And they were really easy to make because it's a lot of just kind of like text and image. So I was able to breeze through those. There's like 120 of them, and it was a very low effort content, and there wasn't really that much. There still isn't really a lot of great Italian content on YouTube. So we just thought, roll the dice. And at first no one really watched them. I think they're starting to pick up a little bit of steam. So happy to have that be part of the content, part of the wealth of content on my channel.
Eccellente. Adesso possiamo parlare in italiano per questo appuntamento, per questo podcast.
Sì. Andiamo.
I visitori in un po' shock. Non so questo italiano. But I enjoy it very much. It's great. You have like 120 of them. I think I've watched 100.
Cool. Yeah. We're actually making a couple more just now.
Nice.
We're making like 8 more because my mom was like, "Oh, there's a couple that didn't make it in there that are lessons in my course, and I want to because she uses them for her class."
Nice.
She's like, "Oh, just what because she designed it." So she's like, "Oh, we need a couple more," and I figured, why not? Let's just do a few more.
Yeah, right now I'm boning up on what is it, subjunctivo. That's interesting.
The grammar, subjunctive tense is definitely separates the serious from the non-serious. I think it's pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think with a good grasp on present tense and general basic grammar things, and maybe passato prossimo, imperativo, you could get by. You could get by pretty well.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, it's a little misleading because there are even a lot of native Italian speakers that don't necessarily know all of that grammar.
Oh, I know. I didn't know it in English.
Yeah, there are poor speakers of all languages. So, but that's why I try to throw in. We wanted to throw in certainly a lot of vocabulary because vocab is important, but also little cultural stuff. This is about coffee and how you order coffee over there, and the customs and things like that. We're doing a history of pasta and history of pizza as well. For
it's funny because I just watched the coffee one yesterday. I was going through. I'm like, which ones haven't I watched? This coffee one looks interesting because when I go, every once in a while, when I go into a coffee shop in Italy, when I can ever go again, un doppio ristretto per favore. And every once in a while they go, we can't do that. I'm like, what?
Right.
And they're like, it's a fixed machine. I push the button.
Yeah.
And it does it. And then other places will be like, signore, conosce tu caffè.
Yeah, my mom's she's interested, she has very low tolerance she'll just be like, cappuccino after 10 a.m.? This is preposterous. And she just gets really snooty about it. It's kind of funny.
Well, we've had some times where we're at dinner at an Italian restaurant. And, when we're done, and say, desidera un'altra, do you want anything else, whatever? And I say, un cappuccino. And they look at me with this shock. And I say, signore, un po' scherzo, just a little joke. And they're like, oh my God, signore, infarca, I have a heart attack because of you.
Yeah. Yeah, they have their ways of doing things, and that's how they're done. So
I don't know if you've had this experience. I bought a reasonably good espresso machine in the United States here, and I bought Lavazza coffee beans and tried dozens, if not hundreds of times to make a decent, to maybe trying to get a pretty good espresso, and I could never do it until I learned one little trick. Don't buy Lavazza. Because they have to treat it with pesticides to ship it from Italy to the United States. Because it takes long enough to get here on a cargo ship that they have to treat it, so it will never work. It doesn't matter what you do. So once I started buying locally roasted beans that were roasted a week or two ago, it fixed it. So
yeah, I think I've heard my mom hate on Lavazza a little bit. I don't really remember. I myself don't drink coffee, actually, so I wouldn't be an expert.
It's funny because I can't stand the stuff. And so people are like, wait, why are you making it? And part of it is it's a challenge, and part of it is I love caffeine. So I'm trying to make it as palatable as possible. So all those little nuances matter to make it getting closer to drinkable.
You want to just drink a Red Bull or something?
That thought has occurred to me, but who knows? And it's always better in Italy, and I think it's because I'm in Italy.
Yeah.
Not that it's necessarily better, but I'm looking at the channel here. Let's see. I've got playlists, and of course the channel is Professor Dave Explains on YouTube. That's pretty simple.
Yep.
Let's see. And shout out any one of them that you want to promote or talk about specifically. Economics, immunology, mycology. Mycology? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, mushrooms.
Botany, physics, classical physics and modern physics. That would be great. I should watch those. Astronomy and astrophysics, physics practice problems, chemistry. Oh, I'm getting too many details. Chemistry, biological sciences, biomedical, life, earth sciences, mathematics, languages, and miscellaneous. And there's still more in miscellaneous. So how often are you making a video? Like every couple of days?
Yeah, I usually, I used to be releasing anywhere between 5 and 7 a week. So
Wow.
at one point I was doing every single day. Now I pulled it back to 3, and then actually this summer I pulled it back to 2 a week. I should be going back to 3 a week in a couple weeks here. Just trying to give myself a little bit of room to breathe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was putting out content pretty aggressively for a while. The math and the Italian ones, that there are so many, and they were pretty easy to make, so that's why I was able to hit that higher frequency of uploading. But yeah, some of the stuff is a little more complicated. Immunology, the videos are pretty long, and they require some kind of complex diagrams that take a little while to make. So that's why I pulled back a little bit. But yeah, I really wanted to. I mean, obviously, I started in my expertise, which is chemistry, and then branched out to things that are chemistry adjacent. So I do know a fair amount about biochemistry, physics, math. I'd learned, did well in math in school, and a couple other topics. But then once I sort of exhausted that, I began to hire writers. So like, I'm not writing the immunology content. I'm certainly not writing the economics content or anything like that. Anything that's not science. I didn't write the history content. I didn't write. There are lots of stuff that now that I really don't do too much of the writing. I still write if I do new chemistry content, I write that.
Yeah.
As well as like astronomy and things like that. But anything that's outside of those core physical and biological sciences, I don't write those. I hire people to write those
To help
for me.
you
So,
out. Increase the odds that you sound intelligent.
yeah, exactly. It works very well for me because people. I mean, I very clearly credit the writer in the in the description section, but a lot of people don't read that and they just think, "Wow, he knows everything." It's like, no, I do not.
Now,
I'm hiring people, but hire writers and then consultants. Right now, I fact check in a way that I didn't, unfortunately, when I first started the channel, which is why there were more errors back then. Now I'm a lot more thorough.
and this is your full-time gig now, right?
Full time, yeah.
Yeah, just something you started as a fluke, and now it's bringing home the bacon.
It is in a big way. Yeah, the passive income, man, it's a game changer.
I'm glad to hear it. How did you get started? I think we touched on that, but you're being professor in chemistry, right? That was your original gig.
Yeah. I was teaching at this trade university. I was teaching organic chemistry at a trade university. It was around 2010 to 2013. However, at the same time, I'm a musician and was always pursuing music first and foremost. So teaching was just kind of a way to pay the bills.
Right.
And I was in a touring band, and the touring lifestyle kind of made it such that I was not. Basically, I lost that teaching job for mostly bureaucratic reasons, but also, admittedly, I was skipping out on some duties. I'd skip all the faculty meetings and stuff.
Yeah, they like those
My
meetings.
band was just, yeah, they were just waiting for me to be done with a block so that we could go on the road and stuff. And so then from 2013, 2014, we were on the road pretty much all the time, and we realized we needed some passive income. We needed some revenue streams that were passive because we'd be on the road and you can't really make money on the road. And so, the tours were paying for themselves. We weren't contributing personal money, but we still had rent to pay back home and things like that. So I had the idea, why don't I start a YouTube channel? I've seen that some people, this was pretty early, this is 2014, so there wasn't really that much. There was definitely some educational content, but not as much as now. And I thought, well, people are putting lectures and stuff up there. So I just, I've been lecturing OChem for about 4 years. I'm pretty good at it. Let me just deliver my lectures to camera and put them up and see what happens. And they were very, very well received, which was shocking because being an artist, I'm used to pouring myself into art, into music, and putting it online and having nobody give a shit. So this was something that just kind of instantly, OChem students were like, wow, there's only a couple channels doing this, and this is really helpful. So keep going, and I did. I kept going and kept going and kept going, and now it's what it is now. So
how many videos are there here? Is it a couple hundred, several hundred?
Over 1,000.
Over.
Yeah.
That's more than a couple hundred. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to study my math. I like that you have, and I haven't watched them, but I like the titles. Lies people tell about water. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, so most of my content is sort of curriculum aligned educational tutorials. So I follow along what students are learning in class. Here's all the topics. If you don't understand what you learned today, watch this tutorial. It's going to help.
Yeah.
But around 2019, I started developing this other style of content, which is debunking. I sort of got roped into the flat Earth realm,
Yep,
and so
which
I
we'll
was
talk about a
debunking
little
flat
later.
earthers.
That's the
Sure,
teaser for
yeah,
everybody.
it's good fun for everybody. But then I sort of like got done with that. I was like, all right, well, this is over. But there's so much other. I'm really passionate about public perception of science and misinformation and pseudoscience and the sociological reasons why people fall for misinformation and propagate it. So I sort of just embraced that. Now I have the second style of content, which is just sort of debunking.
Right.
So this one with the water, usually I go after specific con men. So like, here's a con man who's lying on the internet. I'm going to expose him and to explain to you why he's lying and how I know he's lying, and then you won't fall for it. And they don't like that very much. But this one, I wanted to do something more general. There's so much pseudoscience surrounding water, and I started writing the script, and I realized it's going to be way too much for one video. So I split it up into 3. The first one is all about water fluoridation, so all the conspiracy theories about water fluoridation. Then the second one is about special water, so it's alkaline water, oxygenated water, chlorophyll water, all these ridiculous trends. And then the third one's about properties of water, so water memory and
Oh my God, memory.
structured water, this kind of stuff. So just I loves me debunking some pseudoscience, and I do it.
Yeah, I've got a long history of that. Matter of fact, I've given talks to groups about homeopathy and how it doesn't work, how it can't work. Did you ever do anything about Bitcoin yet?
Bitcoin? No, I haven't. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's not really so much my realm.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to go into debunking, it might fit. Just I'll put that out there, because a couple years ago I did a 2-hour segment, 2-hour review of Bitcoin, and boy, did I get in trouble from that one. I got more email and hate mail because I said that basically it can't succeed. That's the summary thing. So yeah, I'm delighted that you're doing this. And one of the things that I saw recently, and of course it has millions and millions of views, is your flat Earth stuff.
Yeah,
and
people like it.
I don't even know. This is not even the newest, is it? It's this is from 2 years ago, 6.6 million, which seems like a lot of views. Considering I'm happy to have
of any video on my channel.
I'm happy to have 20 to 30,000 listeners, dude, and you're pulling in 6 million people. Yeah, I'm also kind of scared because that many people thought it was worth taking their time to watch something about flat Earth, which worries me, because I would like to think that the majority of the population is like, I don't need to watch that because it's so obviously false. But what's going on?
I mean, it's just that flat Earth is so unique in its stupidity. Like other pseudoscience, like maybe not everybody's interested in like water fluoridation. Like, oh, I know there's some conspiracies, but I don't really need to get into the nitty gritty about what. But flat Earth is just so unbelievably stupid. It's just it's the bottom of the barrel.
It's the new 9/11.
No, it's way worse than that. It's
yeah.
way 10 tiers worse than that, because it's the only one that you can disprove instantly by looking at objects in the sky and thinking. It's such basic, irrefutable logic that people really enjoy. I mean, 99% of those views are just people that enjoy watching me dunk on flat earthers. It's just very amusing and entertaining.
Well, and the thing, as a weird example of where we've gotten to, when I sent my email to you saying that I did want to talk about your flat Earth video, I felt compelled to make sure that it was clear to you that I'm not a flat earther, because I could see someone going, "Oh, let's get Dave on and talk about how he's wrong about science and he doesn't know anything." Yeah,
no, I mean, I can safely assume that someone is not a flat earther, especially if they can write in coherent sentences. So, use
sometimes I can do
spelling
that.
And punctuation. So.
I'm not the best. One of the reasons I like speaking is if I use the wrong there, you'll never know it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, you've got this video. How long is this bad boy? This is 45 minutes, and it was a follow-up of, you made a flat Earth video or two, and some flat earthers weren't happy with you.
That's right.
And so they went to all these lengths to explain why you're wrong, and I don't know what the name of the little graph that you kept popping up, but I'm thinking of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah. That they are so, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, they are so profoundly ignorant about so many subjects. It's embarrassing. I don't know if you felt any guilt, critiquing what they say, but
none whatsoever.
It's laughably stupid, absurdly stupid, and part of me wants to say, please tell me it's a joke, that you're just having a hoot with this. But these people, I think, are deadly serious.
Well, the thing is that the vast majority of the flat Earth priests, I call them, these are the people perpetuating the hoax. Now, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't say exactly who, but most of them are not flat Earthers. They're just sort of cashing in. You know what I mean? Anytime you have this some kind of fad or phenomenon where people are investing like this, it's an opportunity to make money. So, and they're very amusing to me because there's a lot of really clever con men that can concoct something really convincing and make a lot of money out of it. These guys are so stupid, but they're still, they're running a con. They just kind of scrape together a meager living off of the little super chats in the live streams. So they'll do their live streams and people give them a little bit of money to get like donations and stuff. So, it beats like whatever crappy minimum wage job they'd have to get, they get to be these little celebrities, little mini celebrities in this dumb, really sad little world.
I envisioned a mouse pressing a bar for food pellets, as long as someone every once in a while throws in $1 or $2. They just keep talking because as long as they're doing their crazy shtick, the money comes in.
Yeah, it beats flipping burgers, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know what else they can do because I don't know. Maybe they're really, really clever and just the shtick is being
stupid. They're remarkably stupid. I can get into it with like, I had a debate with Kent Hovind, and like as disgusting a con man as he is, he's good at what he does. He's really good at being a slippery debater. He knows how to manipulate people. He's clever in his con.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so he's formidable. These guys are they're dumber than rocks. It's really, really bad.
Have you done any videos on religion? Is that kind of in your wheelhouse?
I will do a course on religion at some point from an academic standpoint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I try not to be, though I am atheist, I try not to be one to sort of I don't want to critique religion where it does not infiltrate the scientific space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where religion tries to become a burden on scientific progress, then I'm going to criticize it. But I'm not gonna like knock on your door and say, what religion are you? Oh, that's dumb. You know what I mean? Like it's private, and as long as you're not asserting that over others and trying to limit other people's rights based on your religious beliefs, things like that, then we have a problem. But if you're not doing that, it's not it's
not your thing.
I don't hate religion so much.
But, I'm a little more stringent, but that's okay. We all have our different things. I got invited to a live YouTube chat where someone was going to prove Christianity to me with actual evidence, and it went as one would expect, poorly.
Sure.
But the thing is, after I was done with it, and I was wondering if you had this experience with the flat earthers, after I was done with it, I don't know, it really kind of upset me. It really bothered me because I was hoping that this guy was a charlatan and a con man. I think he really believed what he was trying to convince me of, and well-mannered, obviously a very intelligent person, but to claim these things and then hear my responses and not adjust, not adapt, not to repair your worldview when evidence is given to you, I don't know what to do with that. And I'm guessing you had that with flat Earth.
Self-delusion is very powerful. When you have taken a narrative like that and made it your entire identity, you're not going to just. It takes a lot of effort to restructure your entire identity. People are not going to just do that based on evidence. You know what I mean? It's a very emotional process. But that's why, so religion is different, because religion has been around for thousands of years and people get indoctrinated into it from birth.
Right.
That doesn't happen with flat Earth. These are adults that have decided to turn their backs on reality because they cannot deal with their own ineffectiveness. They're completely ineffectual and pointless people, and they can't deal with that. So they've constructed this alternate reality where they're the woke Neos in the Matrix, and they're, fighting against the power, and they're super important and super smart and relevant. It's a really sad delusion that they've constructed of their own accord. This is not something they've been indoctrinated with. So,
Well, and the thing that was really amazing is that the stuff that you were countering, because you put out some information about why the Earth can't be flat, and then they attacked that, and then you rebutted that, which is how you got the
initially I did it in a very cordial way. It was part of my astronomy playlist, and I didn't look into flat Earth at all. I didn't look at what they believe or say at all, because who cares? Because Earth isn't flat. I didn't care. I just made a video about how we know the Earth is round empirically, based on observations and sort of the history of how we came to know that. And so these bozos were like, "Oh, this is an easy target," and they were very insulting to me. And I was like, "Homie, don't play that." So we're gonna.
That's funny.
I'm going to end your career.
Well, and that's why these sometimes response videos do so well, and why so many people make them. Because they get the views, because people like that. Oh, I'm gonna have a fight with you, but they couldn't stop going to more and more absurdly extreme things, like it's not gravity, it's magnetism. It's not magnetism, it's electric fields. It's I don't know. It just, everything is broken in their world, and the next sentence contradicts the previous sentence, and they either don't see it or don't care. They try to use
science they don't understand to disprove other science they don't understand.
Yeah.
It's astounding. It's astounding to watch.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. Again, everybody, it's Professor Dave Explains, and is it all ad revenue, or do you also have Patreon? Or something like that.
I have Patreon. Yeah, I don't get it. It doesn't make as much of a percentage of my income as for other channels, because I think a lot of channels, for me, my viewership is largely students just trying to get by in their classes. You know what I mean? So I do rack up a lot of views because there's a lot of people studying organic chemistry or
not
getting
it.
So, yeah, exactly. So they're all looking for it. So I get a lot of a lot of people just searching and watching. It's less of a fan-based thing than just people trying to learn. But I definitely have, especially now with the debunking stuff, I'm starting to develop a little bit more of a following for people who like my style of doing that content.
Yeah, it's a whole different kind of thing to take snippets of some crazy person's video and then show them how they're wrong with almost every other word that comes out of their mouth, and that's only because the and aren't wrong. But it's staggering. But I mentioned all these different topics. Everybody can go there and listen, and learn. Even if you're not in a class, right? They can just learn more about astronomy if they want to.
It's a lot of basic information that I wish that, some of it starts to get advanced, but when I start a playlist, classical physics, general chemistry, whatever it is, this is from scratch. And this is stuff that, is learned in high school and that I wish every human would know.
Yeah.
So chemistry, biochemistry, biology, physics, the very rudimentary basics of this. We really need everybody to be on board with this stuff. When we talk about anti-vaxxers and COVID denial and all this kind of stuff,
global warming,
it would be, global warming is a little more niche. I have a little more sympathy for people who fall for misinformation there, because it's more sophisticated knowledge. But just the basics of what molecules are and what they do. The kind of stuff that I hear and the kind of stuff that I combat, it's like, wow, there's really zero comprehension here. There's nothing.
Well, and I think, I'm not sure which book it was in, but Carl Sagan, I think it was Demon Haunted World, where he talked about the idea that, people are going to get to the point where they don't even understand how the world they live in works. They don't understand how a phone works. They don't understand how water gets to them. They don't understand how the Earth works. They don't understand the satellites that allow them to know exactly where they are on a map. It's a dangerous place for us to be. So any other topics that you think we should cover and you want to discuss before, because I know you're very busy and you got to go do something else, but what have I missed?
Not much. If we're doing blatant self-promotion, I published a book this year. It's called Is This Wi-Fi Organic? A Guide to Spotting Misleading Science Online. So it actually kind of combines the two things I do on the channel. So there's really there's passages outlining very basic knowledge in chemistry, biochemistry, biology, physics, and then it applies that towards pseudoscience and gives tips on how to spot pseudoscience and things like that. So I'm pretty proud of.
Great. Well, Professor Dave Explains, the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for coming and visiting with us and talking about the cool stuff that you're doing. have an enjoyable rest of your day.
Thanks very much. You as well.
I think there'd be more atheists and less faithful if you weren't allowed to teach anything, you weren't allowed to mention any gods or any beliefs or atheism, right, until they were 20. I think we'd see a different pattern. The human brain, when it's young, is a sponge. It has to be. It has to take in all the information. It has to trust its parents, its elders, to survive. Without question, don't touch the fire. Why not? Don't go near don't go near the wolf. Don't touch that spider with a red bit. Don't touch that. Why not? Just don't. There is a God. What? There is a God. And if you're bad, you go to hell. Okay? And if that's constantly confirmed, like all the other things, wolves eat you, black widows kill you, fires burn you, if it's given that same level of credence and truth, you're never going to get over it. It's going to be a lot harder to undo that. I think the myths came up, maybe, often as a stopgap to knowledge until we find out more. The Earth is flat, and no, we've proved now, okay, the Earth's not flat, we were wrong, okay? But that's not personal. You don't take that personally. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your afterlife, And so they often want to hold on to that, right? But only because of the way they've been conditioned. We know it's fun to tell children there's a Santa Claus, and there's fairies at the bottom of the garden, and all these cute things. It's cute till they're 7 or 8. If they're 34, it's a bit embarrassing socially. This is my son. What's he doing? He's looking for fairies. Is he? Okay, we better leave. If you're born in India, you're probably a Hindu. If you're born in America, you're probably a Christian. If you're born in Pakistan, you're probably a Muslim. That's a coincidence, isn't it? That you're always born into the right God. Always. Isn't that lucky? I was born under the right God. All those others are going to hell. But I was born into the right religion. I'm going to heaven. It's strange that we hold on to these sort of medieval beliefs. Where did the universe come from? God made it. Which doesn't solve the problem for me. Because we straight away say, well, who made God? And if they say, well, he's always been around, well, let's just say the universe has then. Let's just cut out the middleman. It saves time.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
Absolutely fantastic that you're still here. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, there's a couple of things you can do to help me out. One is to go to Apple Podcast or Stitcher or any other platform that has ratings and give a 5-star review. And of course, if you add something else that you like about the show there, that might help a prospective viewer who stumbles across the show and says, is this guy for real? And then they see hundreds and hundreds. I actually don't even know how many reviews there are. I'll have to look that up. But it makes the show actually look legitimate. So that's nice. And that really helps to get all those 5-star reviews. So if you can do that, thank you. The other thing you can do is go to patreon.com and become a patron of the show and contribute as little as $1. Maybe you want the top tier of $6.66. And as one of my listeners found out, if you make a mistake with your decimal point, you can pay more than $6.66. On a random side note, cat owners, this is for you. Cat owners, maybe dog owners too. Maybe dogs do some of the same stuff. But we have a cat that Freckles, very very cool name for a cat, is getting old. 17, 18 years, I think. I'm not actually sure. And so, not a kitten. Not a kitten for sure. But she's been losing weight, and we've been buying different foods, and she has become very picky with food. And a couple things that we've learned, the bowl with the dry food that's always available, and for the average cat, that works pretty well. Honestly, works pretty well. It's a known cat thing, though, that if you put it like in a white bowl or on a white plate or something that's white or just a solid color, when they eat enough food so that they can see part of the bottom of the plate under the food, even if there's still quite a bit of food there, there's this weird cat thing that they're out of food. And man, our cat, and she's always been this way. It's one of the most talkative cats I've ever seen in my life. And trust you me, she'll wake you up in the morning if she can see the bottom of the bowl. It's absolutely hysterical. So we've alternated between a bowl that has a picture of the food taped to the bottom of it, or a bowl maybe that is white all the way around, but the bottom has a flower pattern or something, which, different swirls and colors. It's not as obvious to see that it's the same white as the side of the bowl. Just kind of a funny thing. The other thing we've been doing is trying to give her more wet food. And she goes over to where the water and the dry food is, and then there's a little bit of wet food on the plate next to it. And she'll sniff it, give it a couple of nibbles, and then leave it. If it just fucking gets wasted, she won't eat the food. So we tried smaller amounts. Didn't really help. Then I came up with this crazy idea, is that we take the food that we're giving her in a smaller amount of wet food, we put it on a plate, and we put it somewhere around the kitchen, dining room, or living room. That's not where she normally gets food. And when she finds it, she eats all of it. And she finds it pretty quick, because, let's be honest, wet cat food has a pretty good smell to it, or has a modestly strong smell. I don't know if I'd call it good, but you can smell it. So she'll find it, and I don't know, but I'm kind of thinking, making it more human. Ooh, I found this. This must be special, and she'll eat all of it. And so now every time we give her wet food to supplement the dry food, we're using a small amount, we're putting it on a plate, and just laying the plate down somewhere. Now, of course, the trick is to remember to pick up the plates that you have left around the house and not step on it and shatter it, or kick it and spill food anywhere. But I don't know if anyone has a pet that has, particularly a cat, that doesn't want to eat their food. If you've got any brilliant ideas, I'd love to hear it, and maybe I can use it or share it with the other listeners. Other things going on in my life, I don't remember if I mentioned this. If I did in the previous show or two, I apologize. I've been so promotional about electric vehicles, and I still will be, that I feel obligated to tell you about a little problem. Maybe it's not that little of a problem, but the Chevy Bolt, with a B, Bravo, not the V, Volt, Bolt. I think it's idiotic that they use those two words. They both kind of are electrical, so I get it. But the Bolt, which I own 100% electric car, has had a handful of battery fires. It's been when the car has been sitting, and thankfully nobody's been hurt. Some of the fires were out in the open. A couple of fires caught part of the house on fire. And in almost every case, it seems to be that a car battery fire often starts out very slow, kind of like a smoldering thing, and emits a lot of smoke, a lot of smoke. And then it goes to a lot of smoke. And at some point, it gets access to other parts of the vehicle that burn in a different way, and then it can spread quickly. But sometimes you can have 5 to 10, even 15 minutes of heavy smoke without really damaging anything else around it. However, the downside is that once the battery catches on fire, it's really, really, really hard to put it out. You have to smother it in water to put out the flames, and you have to keep it smothered in water to a degree that the temperature of the battery pack falls down below a certain level. Otherwise, as soon as the water dries up a little bit, it'll start right back up. Of course, you could say gasoline cars catch on fire too. They do. And so far, throughout history of electrical cars, my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'll correct it. But my understanding is that the percentage of gasoline cars that ever catch on fire is higher than the percentage of electric cars that have ever caught on fire. Most often, gasoline cars don't just spontaneously catch on fire. They have a short, or they have an accident or something like that. Also the same thing with electric cars, with a few exceptions. And one of those exceptions is now the Bolt car, like the car I own. And it's a fraction, let's see what it's not 1%. It's not even 1% of 1%. It's less than 1% of 1%. So it's a very, very small number. However, If your car is parked in your garage and it catches on fire and you're asleep, it's a big fucking problem. So we want to figure out what's going on. GM hasn't handled it the best. And yes, you could tell me that Teslas have had fires too. I know that. I'm not talking about the whole industry. I'm talking about my specific car. The probability is very low. GM thought that they had a programming fix. I changed a bit of the code and I got an update to the software, and they thought that that would fix it. It didn't. It didn't work. They had 1 or 2 more fires. Again, the total number of fires is, I think, 12 known or 12 publicly known fires. So it's not a huge number, but it's a lot bigger number than I'd like. So now the current thing is that GM has said that you should not charge more than 90%. For non-EV drivers, a lot of people do that already, and I'm not going to go into the reasons for that, but basically the belief that your battery will last longer, and there might be some merit to that. But they also added the condition that you should not go below 30%. So on the normal driving day, you're now not getting 100% of your possible range. You're getting from 90 to 30, 60% of your possible range. Now, for the most part, that has not affected me at all. I work from home. I don't drive that much. And if you really want to, on a long trip, you charge it to 100% and go. You just leave it at 90% for the full will be 90% for you most of the time. The lower end also hasn't affected me particularly much because I often don't get the car that low. I would rather have a couple more stops on a long trip versus one longer stop at the end of my trip when the battery is really low, because, and this is one of the other problems, it's called range anxiety. I think that's wrong. I don't really have range anxiety. I know how far I can go in my fucking car. It's charging anxiety. And in New England and California, most of the West Coast, there's a lot more charging stations. Ironically, in some plains states, there's huge numbers of charging stations. And even for me, all around Chicago, there seems to be an endless number of charging stations that, thankfully now, unlike a few years ago, always work all the time. The problem I have is I go south. If I go south to Champaign, Illinois, or over towards Indy, or over towards Springfield, Illinois, or even west. But if I go to Wisconsin, it's pretty good. If anywhere around Chicago, it's pretty good. Michigan's fantastic. I think I've talked about that before. Michigan has hundreds of charging stations that are not Tesla charging stations. But some areas going south, it might be limiting. And if you go to the second or third or fourth possible stop on your route and your battery is 5 or 10%, which is obviously pretty low, and you want to charge it, but then you find out it doesn't work. So that's where the anxiety for me comes in, if the station doesn't work. So I would never really do that anyway. So I would go and, I get to 30 or 40%. I charge up to 80%. I go to the next station. And yes, it adds a little more time because I'm stopping twice, but it's not that bad. But I also have the luxury of being able to park my car on the street, because one of the things that GM has recommended is that you don't leave it unattended when charging. At least don't sleep while it's charging. And when you're done charging, or if you can, charge it away from your house. And I'm in a nice suburb and I have it on the street, so it's no big deal. But I figured I would share that as a problem, as a concern. The older models seem to have a bigger problem. They changed a little bit with the production of the cells that they used in the cars. And the newer models were at first thought to be free. So the 2017, 18, 19, I own a 19, had the problem. The newer models did not. But then a couple of the newer models caught on fire. And I think that some of the newer models may also have a problem. And it may be that every single model that was going to catch on fire already did catch on fire, because the production error is very low probability. The problem is that the result, or the after effect of this error becoming realized in the physical world through the batteries getting too hot or shorting out, it causes a fire. That's a pretty big concern. So they're working on that. There's an official recall, and I have been told that as soon as the parts become available, they will replace my entire battery pack. It's the parts, when the parts become available part, that is very frustrating, because There's no information on that. And I don't think we're talking weeks or even a couple of months here. I think we're talking several months to many months, because they have to make these batteries and they can't use the old systems and the old equipment to do it. They have to make sure that however they're making these replacement batteries don't have the unusual, I don't know if I call it rare, error that existed in the battery packs that are already in the cars, because then you're just replacing potentially problematic batteries with problematic batteries. On the nice side, though, is that the new battery packs promise to give 17, 18, and 19 model years a 8% increase in range. So my theoretical range goes from 239 to 260. So 240 to 260. So that's kind of cool. And they're going to reset the warranty on the battery. So when they put the replacement battery in, you will get 8 years and 100,000 mile warranty from the manufacturer from the date that it's installed. So as far as I'm concerned, because of my situation, I don't need the battery pack right away. Matter of fact, it might be in my best interest if it takes them 2 years, as long as there's no fire. Of course, if there's a fire, my car's insured. I just don't want anyone to get hurt. But I might be able to drive my car 2 or 3 more years and be just fine. Occasionally charging fuller than 90%, occasionally going below 30%, but most of the time I stick in that range. Most of the time it's very easy for me to charge late at night or early in the morning, then move the car. It's not really that big of a deal. It is more of an image thing. And if I want to promote electric cars, one could argue maybe I shouldn't share the story, but I share what I think is the reality and the truth of the situation. And this is a problem. And GM maybe hasn't responded as well as they could or should. And the nice thing going forward on the future GM vehicles that are coming out, they're using a newer battery technology, and their fancy schmancy name for it is the Ultium batteries. So I don't know from a chemical, physical standpoint why they're different, but they're supposed to be safer, better, faster charging. You can discharge faster so that you can accelerate even faster. Not that it's necessary. And that's the battery packs that they are going to put into the brand new Cadillac Lyriq, the brand new Hummer, which is total overkill, but people will buy it and they'll pay a lot of money for it. And that's cool. If everybody's happy, fine. And they're also coming out with several other cars. They're hoping to come out with, oh my God, I had it in my mind. A truck, because like the F-150 Lightning from Ford, and GM is talking about a electric Silverado. So we're moving forward. This is a hiccup. And I understand when I'm buying a car that is kind of on the leading edge of technology, there might be an increased chance of a problem. And at least in my situation, the problem is not so awful, but I figured I would share it with you anyway. If you have questions in general about electric cars, or even specifically about my car, you can always email me, Phil@Polaris Financial Planning, and I can answer your questions about that, or send me an email, or hit me up on Facebook, whatever. I'm fine. But more than I wanted to go over, I guess. A really long show. And thank you for listening. And remember, if you go to patreon.com/Phil, you're paying, or you're contributing per show. So if I skip a week or two, you don't pay extra. If I make a painfully long show, you don't pay extra, because it's per show. It's not per minute. It's not per week. It's not per month. It's per show. Again, thank you for listening. And I do hope that someday we can meet in person, and we'll call it the after time, because there's the before time when you could actually meet people regularly and follow the rules at the same time. But until then, I wish you the best, and I do hope to see you soon. Ciao.